Hi, this is Paul with Informed CIO. Today we're going to be talking about how to secure JD Edwards from two very specific types of denial of service attacks. Our agenda is going to be discovery. How do the bad actors find JDE systems? What are the type of denial of service attacks that JD Edwards is vulnerable to? How do we mitigate against those attacks? And then lastly, pulling it all together into an action plan. So first of all, discovery. How do you find JDE systems that are publicly exposed to the internet? Well, like most things on the internet, Google is a really good place to start. Literally, you just go out, type in JD Edwards, log in, type in key aspects of the URL, and boom, you've got this list of systems that are out there that are publicly exposed. We've got some .gov that are out there. We've got a lot of commercial customers that are out there, seeing a little bit of employee self-service. Literally, this is all coming right up off of Google. One of the first things I recommend companies consider doing is not using their corporate domain name for their JD Edwards system. If you've got to have it publicly exposed, do not tie it directly back to your identity. If somebody is specifically targeting you, it makes it way, way too easy. So so now that we've actually discovered some of these JDE systems that are out there, let's talk about the types of denial of service attacks that they're vulnerable to. So the first type of attack we're going to talk about is a distributed denial of service attack. So when we talk about denial of service, this is generally what everyone thinks of. So the idea is all of these red servers that are shown out here, these are bots. And this bot army is probably computers that are out on the internet that have been infected with malware and are under some bad actor's control. So the bad actor is able to say, hey, bot army, I want all of you to simultaneously start making requests to this URL. And literally you overwhelm it. You suck all of the oxygen out of the room, and your system can no longer respond to legitimate requests because it's being overwhelmed with all of these fictitious requests. And as long as you're being targeted, your system is effectively unusable. So how do we mitigate against a distributed denial of service attack? Well, one of the very best ways is using a web application firewall, also called a WAF, and using one specifically that has distributed points of presence, or POPs. So the idea is you have these POPs spread all over the globe, hundreds of them. So whatever system that the user is closest to, that's the POP that they're going to connect to. So now when this bot army is trying to attack your system, instead of hitting your URL directly, what they're doing is they're hitting a specific POP. And maybe there's enough to overwhelm a specific POP, but because there's hundreds of these, because they're spread out across the globe, they're really not able to effectively hit and take down your system. So WAF is the way to go in terms of mitigating that distributed denial of service attack. So there's a second form of denial of service attack that JD Edwards is vulnerable to. And this is very JD Edwards specific. So you've got your system, you've got it exposed to the internet, and you're using the default JD Edwards system service account. So your JD Edwards system in this example is starting up under the JDE user. So what you do is you simply go to that publicly exposed URL, you pull up the JD Edwards sign-in page, and then you start repeatedly logging in as that JDE service user. You do that 10 times in a row or whatever the rules are set to, and you lock out that service account. And when you lock out that service account, you've in essence brought down the entire JD Edwards system. So you're pretty much stuck until the CNC administrator gets in there, re-enables that account, and restarts JD Edwards. In essence, you've taken this company offline for, a significant period of time. So how do you protect against that? This one's really easy. Don't use JDE as your service account. Don't use something that sounds like JDE as your service account. Make it a novel user account that everything is starting up under so that it's something that a bad actor is not easily going to guess. So let's tie this all together into an action plan. So very first thing, talk with your CNC or talk with your managed service provider and find out what service account is Enterprise One running under. Is it JDE? If it is, schedule a time with them for an outage window in which that can be changed to some form of nondescript service account. The next thing would be to talk to the business about why is Enterprise One being exposed directly to the internet? Does it really need to be? Now, I understand this is a hard one. Your business has probably really become accustomed to using it in this way. And maybe it is legitimately a requirement. But by far, the best thing that you can do is if you don't have to have it exposed, don't. But let's say it does have to be exposed. Can you use a URL that doesn't reference your company name? That way, if someone is directly targeting your organization, you don't have that easy link between what my company name is and what my URL is. Make it at least a little bit more difficult for them to find out what that JD Edwards system URL is. Another mitigation might be, can you whitelist specific IP addresses or specific IP ranges for accessing this system? It's not perfect, it's a weak defense, but it's still throwing up another barrier to entry. Lastly, are we using a WAF? A WAF will provide you protection against that distributed denial of service attack that we were talking about before. A really good one to use is Oracle Dyn on OCI. It's extremely cheap. It's a very robust system that has those points of presence that we discussed earlier. And then lastly, we didn't go into detail about why this is important, but always, always, always stay current on your WebLogic patches. This is probably the #1 thing that you can do to protect your system in general. So any questions, feel free to reach out to me at paul@informedcio.com. I'd love to hear from you. Also, I'd like to hear about how you're protecting your JD Edwards systems. Talk with you later and have a great day. Bye.